Are you planning a new cafe, or maybe it's just time to renovate? Today, I'm going to talk you through all the things that you need to consider when thinking about the best coffee setup for your new cafe. Now, we go into a lot of detail with our customers and we go through specific plans, but today we're just going to discover some of the things that you need to think about throughout the whole process to make sure that you end up with the best result. Now, before I get into it, I have a downloadable PDF that I'm going to share a link with you, and it's going to be a super helpful resource. It's got more than what I'm even putting in this video today. So make sure you head to the link below, download that, but make sure you watch the whole video before you do. Working out who you need to work with. Now, have you got your trades organized? Is there certain people that you want to work with? Is your family involved? But who are you getting the best advice from? Obviously, you've come to the right spot, you're on YouTube, you're watching us, and we're gonna help you, but there is gonna need to be some more people that surround you and support you, whether it's from the build, whether it's from the cafe planning, but definitely go into it with people that have experience with coffee. This is not just any business. You can't just build a bench and put a coffee machine on it and you're good to go. You definitely wanna work with the right people throughout the whole process so that when you get to the end of the line, we're not surprised that something was wrong and we have to fix it. So let's work with the right people, get your trades on board, and that's going to be your first step to a successful coffee bench setup. So this is a little bit of a chicken before the egg game, where we're trying to work out how much coffee that you're going to sell if you're a new business. If you're an existing cafe and you already know the volume you're doing, that's going to help with your planning, because all of that planning all of the volume that you're doing will dictate the equipment that you require. It's the workflow. Are you planning a bench for multiple people working on the machine? And there's considerations there that have to come into effect as to how busy you're truly going to be and what the system needs to be in place. So start thinking about the volume and predicting that volume. That volume might also be of help to you if you're contacting suppliers, coffee roasters. Is your coffee roaster able to help with the supply of equipment, free up your cash? And is that coffee roaster able to grow with you if you do start with a small setup and then change the build and increase your equipment over time as you grow? So thinking about the volume of coffee that you're going to be selling is going to help greatly so that you can plan, and maybe you do need to invest in your equipment early. It's always hard to know whether you can justify the cost of that dual boiler coffee machine or that second grinder, the deli grinder that you really had a vision for. But understanding the kind of volume that you're going to do is going to help justify all of the expenses to making sure you've got the equipment that's required to do great specialty coffee really fast with great workflow. So we're here at beautiful Bernie's Deli on the Coffs coast, New South Wales, Australia, and this amazing cafe is pretty new, and there were considerations that we had to think about when coming into this space as well. Now, there's a great area here for the customers to sit, but we didn't want to lose seating by doing our usual workflow that is from one side to the other and out. Now in this space, we did have to put the grinders towards the wall. We wanted to tuck them away, which loses a little bit of our great flow that we usually get. But in this case, it was the best scenario for the customers, and that is something that you do need to consider when you're actually setting up your workflow. It's not just about what's happening behind the bench. So think about where your customers are coming in, they're taking their order, and then they're moving back to their seats. So we want to make sure that there's a comfortable place for them to come pick it up, and that is on the side that they're going to be sitting and waiting in this room. But from this side, we're definitely wanting to make sure the customer experience is great. And then come around this side. So for the staff, obviously we've got a nice clear in and out. We're taking the order from here, we're riding on the cups, and we're only in arm's reach. Now, I would say if you're building a cafe, be sure to think about how far away your till system is from your baristas, from your kitchen. Docket systems can be challenging. We love the process of riding on cups, watch the video on that one. And we know that that connection between the person taking the order and the barista is important. So you do want to think about how close they are, especially if you're using a process of riding on a cup, so you can easily reach that coffee machine from there. Now, we will be moving from here. In this space, as they're growing, they've generally got one person on the machine. They'll get two people in there when they're busy, but they have nice amount of space here they went for a 3-group machine. Now, they're only 6 months old, they're growing their business, but this is going to prepare them to be seriously busy. It is a dual boiler Lamazocco linear PB. They have a jug rinser, they've got the Amp from SP2, a Cineart tamper, and the Mazda ZM ensures that they can do retail coffee. It thinks about the fact that they can do their single origins for their batch brew. Now, this equipment has been chosen as an early investment in this business to make sure that it is ready to get busy. It sets the standard for the specialty coffee that they want to produce. And this is something that was high on the list for them to ensure that they were setting the standard for sure on their coffee. So a great example of a cafe that transformed from an account doing only 10 to 15 kilos a week was this place, Village Pantry. So the previous owners were only doing a small amount of coffee. They only had a small 2-group coffee machine tucked behind a wall that was through here. When the new owners came in, they saw a vision to be able to open up the bar, improve the look and the feel, but also make sure that they fully committed to the right equipment that was required to go into the volume that they were looking at doing. So straight away, we set them up with a 3-group machine. We had a blend grinder that we were doing high volume coffee on. We had an EK43 here at one point, but they increased their volume so much that we could give them a dedicated single origin grinder and a separate deli grinder, decaf grinder for their bar. So that was a great example of someone that just had a vision for growth and understanding of what equipment was required. They do also have a hands-free jug rinser. That's the little touches that make the advantage on speed and efficiencies in their workflow. Now, this particular cafe is one of my favorite workflow setups, is that we're actually working from what would be left to right. So a customer comes in, takes their order on one side, that cup moves through the process from the grinders to a tamp. We've got a OCD, NCD tool there, good distribution. We've got our 3-group Lamazocco FB80 here, all of our milk set up here, good fridge space underneath. So that workflow smoothly runs from one side of the bench to the other, and that is not always possible in every single cafe scenario. We're going to look at a few different scenarios for you, but today this particular location has a great workflow. It means that the staff can work freely together. There is plenty of room for multiple staff here, and that was a big consideration. We know that we need multiple baristas on the machine when we're doing high volume, and that's been in from the start. We want to make sure that we hit the ground running. It was an early investment, but it's definitely paid off because we've more than doubled the volume in this particular location. I have already done a full walkthrough of this espresso bar, so check out the link in the description below for the cafe walkthrough on Village Pantry. So let's not forget that there's also the consideration for the customer and their workflow. Now, remember when you're planning a cafe, you've got to think about where the customers are coming in and how they're exiting. We really don't want that crossover of staff, we don't want that clash. So you do need to have a good floor plan, good map. There is another great video we've got. Luke did a floor plan layout video, we'll put the link below. Think about the customer's experience when they come to the bar, they take their order, there's not staff crossing over them, and then their order works through and they move out of the way. So if you can direct your customers to move in one direction and then come to the end of the bench where they can pick up their coffee order, it's going to massively improve the experience for the customer as well. So in a space like this, there's a few different places for storage. Now they have a beautiful display where they put all their bags up and the customers can see that. And it's a very clever way to not take up underbench storage, but be able to obviously have a lot of coffee on hand. It still looks beautiful and it's not taking up space. There's simple little cupboards. They're using some of the bench space, but it's definitely a consideration because under your benches, you've got fridges both sides and you are limited on what you can access straight away here. So good shelves behind the baristas, good workspace so that they can use this, all the stock comes down and they can use that. You can create something that looks as beautiful as this. It's a great use of storage in your cafe. All right, so I've got heaps of room here and I could put all the equipment I want on this bench. Not everyone has that luxury. And sometimes you really need to think about what equipment you're actually going to need. Do you need a 3-group or do you need a 2-group? Do you have room to be able to fit a puff press or an auto tamper? Can you fit a second grinder? Can you fit other deli grinders? Are you planning on doing retail? Have you thought about the amount of equipment that you're actually going to need on your bench? And can you even fit all of that equipment on your bench? You've got to also then consider, do you have access to the power and water and the waste that you need in your coffee space? So in any good machine, you're looking at potentially 20 to 32 amps of power. You want to make sure that the building itself has that much power access, but you also need to consider whether you're going to need extra trades to plumb more pipes in, to put water, to put waste, and to put extra power points in for your coffee machine. So consider that when you're choosing your equipment as to what equipment you want, what equipment do you need, what can you fit, and then consider what availability you have to the other power, water, waste that you're going to need to be able to actually set that up in your cafe. So everyone always wants to know what is the best specs for my bench. Now this is completely considered by the experience from the customers, whether you're working left to right, but there's definitely a few key components that we think are of an advantage for the barista, just make it more comfortable. And that would be the one thing, would definitely be the height of the bench. This one's a little bit lower. Because not everyone is 6'6" tall. You've got to think about your staff and how high your bench is, and will that impact the way that they comfortably use the machine. So some people are height challenged.
Yeah, like this all the time.
And there isn't a huge gap here, but as the technician comes in and the technician's having to go through the bench and run your waste, your power, your water, you want to make sure that that can go through your bench and easily feed over the top of your fridge. You don't want that fridge butting up against here, so you want to make sure you've got enough clearance. So there's no real answer. You do sometimes have to choose your appliances first. You have to think about whether you've got other things like ice machines, dishwashers, other appliances, cupboards, but fridges specifically, it's worth investigating early what fridges you'd like to use, because it might be that they dictate the amount of space required above your fridge to do that. The other thing to really consider is the depth of that fridge with the amount of equipment that goes behind that fridge. Now, for a coffee machine like this, a dual boiler machine does have a large motor that's external. It needs to generally be put against the wall behind the fridge. So there's like a dual water filter system, there's a coffee pump, there's all the power and all the outputs of water. I always allow 150 millimeters behind the fridge for that equipment. So I will always opt for a deeper bench. If you've got the room in your shop, and this is very much dictated by the space that you have available, maybe you don't have quite this much space and that's intruding on customer space and you might have to compromise there, but allow yourself a little bit of room in front of the machine and even behind the machine. It is a beautiful display area. It's something that more storage, but also just that minimal look, nice spacious area. So don't be afraid to give yourself that extra depth. Everyone tends to build as small as possible. The depth to the bench that really helps. Obviously the length of the bench is what's going to dictate you being able to fit multiple grinders, an auto tamper, whether you have a 3-group now or whether you're going to upgrade to a 3-group in the future, could be dictated by the length of your bench. If you get a 2-group now and you go and put your jug rinser right up tight against the machine, you might actually never be able to upgrade to a 3-group without redoing your bench. So consider that, make sure you've got plenty of space there, and also make sure you've got a nice clear space for pouring your coffees so that you're not making a mess. You can pour your sauces out, and it's a great workspace, super comfortable for the barista, great for 2 people when you do get really busy. So whether you're rebuilding a cafe and renovating or you're building from scratch, you've got to think about a lot of the same things. Do you have power? Do you have waste? Do you have water? And can you save some money by keeping any of the original build? Can you keep some of the bench and extend on it? That is something that was done here and done quite well, is that sometimes it can be really costly to move the power and water and waste. So it is something that I've seen a lot of people have to compromise on their dream setup because the building just doesn't allow for the water to be sent to the other side of the room. It's all well and good to have a coffee machine at the front window of the shop, but if the power's at the back and you don't have the budget to really extend and have the trades out to do that work, it can be quite expensive and you might have to compromise on that. So definitely consider what you can keep, where you can save your money on the build, and that's going to be a consideration of how you could better allocate that budget and get creative with that money. All right, so you've got all of those things considered. Have you been doing the budget the whole time? Have you been planning along and working out what all these things are going to cost you? And that's something that I highly recommend you do at the start of any project. Start to map it out, start to keep track of all the things and all the expenses. It's not a cheap exercise opening a cafe, especially opening a good one. One that looks good, one that's functional with the right equipment. Obviously you're trying to set the bar as far as a good specialty coffee shop, and it's not a cheap exercise. And we want to make sure that you're not losing or wasting money along the way. So that's what this plan is for. And to tie into that, it's the timeline. How long can you afford to build this cafe? How much time do you need to plan and get the advice together? Can you get the trades that you want to be able to build soon enough? Or are they the thing that's going to push you out? And in a lot of projects I see, they get pushed out by the tradies. They're the ones that are even busier and they are hard to get. And if you miss them, they can push you out by a week, and that week can be detrimental to the opening. We want to make sure you've got enough time for training. You want to learn how to use your new equipment, spend time with your coffee roaster, and make sure that you are well prepared for opening, let alone being completely finished with the build. So the timeline is really important, making sure that you're working with your budget, and that is how we're going to make sure that we're going to produce the best outcome for your cafe. So now what you need to do is go to the link below. There is a PDF download that I've created, a whole list of these considerations. There's more than what I've covered today. That's the run sheet that you need. You need to go download that PDF so that you can start answering those questions, so that you're planning ahead for the future. You're doing the right thing when getting your cafe set up. So download it now. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We've got more videos just like this. And if you want to talk to myself or Luke or any of the team here at Artisti about your cafe build and can we help you launch your dream cafe, we'd love to hear from you. Head to the website, get to the contact page on our website, and like this video, hit the bell icon, and I will see you next time. Cheers, bye.